Welcome back to this lecture on the Northern Renaissance, and we'll be beginning part 2 by looking at Jan van Eyck, probably one of the most well-known of the Flemish painters. Jan was a master who worked at a busy court and signed his paintings. That's unusual for the time. So we really do know a lot about his later work. As always, some things are, it's harder to find them. But let's talk about Jan. His great masterpieces are the Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, also known as the Ghent altarpiece. And he was born somewhere about 1395. You can see here I have circa. And he's also known as be a painter in Bavaria. He'll work in Bruges, and then he'll serve Philip the Good, a powerful ruler and foremost patron of the arts in Flanders. He's the Duke of Burgundy. He helped the Duke in a lot of different ways besides just being his painter. He also helped him to arrange his marriage to Isabella of Portugal, and he was a confidant of Philip. He was commissioned to make her, image so the Duke could decide how this marriage was going to go. We know that he lived in Bruges, but we're not really sure about early parts of his career. Scholars think he is his early career is based on medieval manuscript illumination. Illuminations, again, if you don't know, are books that are painted. So let's look at his most famous piece, the Ghent altarpiece, also called the Adoration of the Lamb, the Mystic Lamb, excuse me. It's a polyptych. That means it has many parts to it. And it, too, is meant to be in a cathedral, not in a private setting. It's big. And it was made for St. Bavo's Cathedral in Ghent. It is considered by many people his great masterpiece. And we know that maybe he was influenced by the Limburg brothers in his realism. He also was influenced by Robert Campin. Jan was there twice, and he became really known for the luminous oil technique that really becomes kind of his signature, if you will. If we look at the masterpiece, it was large. And it has a very tumultuous history. Adam and Eve are here. I'll go back. You can see here. He was criticized, by the way, for making them nude. And it's telling, again, it's the adoration of the mystic lamb, the symbol for Christ. He's really into symbolism. His famous Ghent altarpiece, though, is more well known by some people for what happened to it. It is a piece that was contested as far as its ownership. Not contested, but it goes back and forth in the World War II, both Adolf Hitler as well as Goering wanted it. It was stolen at one point. It has suffered 13 separate crimes over its history. It has been in fire. People have stolen it, like I said. And the first really time we see that happen is in 1566 when the Protestants went to St. Bavo's to burn it. It had been taken apart and hidden. And then after a few decades in the Napoleonic Wars, a French general snatched it. It was moved to the Louvre. And then we have the real trial for the work was when both Hitler and chief henchman Hermann Goering decide they want to acquire it. Hitler got his hands on it first, and then Goering got it, and then Hitler got it back. And then it is found by the monument men And if you've never heard their story, it's a really, really interesting. It's a film, by the way. You can actually watch this. It's really interesting. They were people who were commissioned to get back stolen works of art from the Nazis. If we go on though to other images by Van Eyck, the Arnolfini portrait, or the Arnolfini wedding, or the Arnolfini marriage, or the portrait of Giovanni Arnolfini and his wife, gosh, is that a mouthful, is much more famous. It is done in 1434, and it is an example of how Van Eyck chooses everything super carefully. It is very well designed. If we look at it, it is filled with symbols. We can't really see this as well as we could if we were standing in front of it, but let me tell you, it's all about the couple's wealth and social status. But they couldn't be too flamboyant because they would be criticized for copying the aristocracy. There is a large and luxurious bed there, but this is not a bedroom, but a reception room. And that reception room showed how wealthy they were. Because think of this, if you could afford it, you had a bedroom in your reception room, a bed in your reception room. I would love that. I've always thought that was really cool. You know, there's other things in here that indicate their wealth, such as look at his clothing, but you couldn't wear everything similar to the aristocracy. So this is Martin instead of Mink. She is beautifully attired in her dress that is expensive. She wears this green wool overcoat with dagged sleeves. The sleeves, when they fall like this, are called dagged sleeves, trimmed in fur. She is not pregnant, but holding up her gown as women commonly did in this period. I read this really interesting thing that someone recreated this outfit, let's say, in 1997 in the Wimbledon School of Art, and they had to use 35 meters of material to recreate it. It's lined with squirrel fur, and as many as 2,000 skins were used. Talk about extravagant. For not wanting to ape the aristocracy. Certainly, it seems as if they did. There's other symbols here, though, that refer to fertility. That's St. Margaret. She's the patron saint of childbirth. There's, signs of what we think's happening, although today it's been revised that this was their wedding portrait. The three oranges here, they're kind of hidden. Let's see, right back there. So let's go back. Show how wealthy they are. They were also, though, because these were expensive. They came from the South. But they also were symbols of love and marriage. So maybe it is their wedding portrait. We don't know. The little dog is a typical dog from around that region. And he is a Brussels Griffon, and he's also kind of a symbol of loyalty. If you don't know the symbol for loyalty, it is dog, and he sits at her feet. Seen in the mirror and painted over the top of the mirror, and we can't see it here in this particular image, are, we think, Jan and his servant. Perhaps they were... maybe they were witnessing the marriage, although we do think he was friends with them. Here is a rosary that is attributed to women, and so piety and all of this stuff is ingrained in this. It is, without a doubt, a display of Jan's extreme technical perfection. And we find him to be very influential, although very difficult to copy. He's often referred to as one of those artists you study, but you can't really do what they did. We're going on to another artist now, but I just want you to know something else about the Ghent masterpiece on the altar. Let me see if I can get you a little bit more of the verbiage here again. There we go. Because again, altarpiece was stolen. It was eventually in the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. That was the first time. And then, of course, when the Monument Men got it back from Hitler, that they put it in the treaty that the altarpiece had to be returned to Brussels. Excuse me, Flanders. That theft has a book, by the way. It's called The Stealing of the Mystic Lambs. And so it's one of those really interesting stories in history. I'm kind of fascinated. The next person we're going to talk about is Rogier van der Weyden. And he is really an assistant, we think, of Robert Campin. And he has been known as a recorder of individual features of people, and especially this portrait of a lady gained him a kind of reputation. The beautiful use of light, and he's a master, I've always thought this, of evoking subtle feelings. In this portrait, her society is an approved, her position and the way she sits is an approved pose that society approved of, but it seems as the way as if she looks down that maybe she herself doesn't approve. I've always wondered that. She is really beautifully detailed with that. Look at that, luminous skin, and we can see here through the cloth and how fine it was. Van der Weyden's great piece, though, is always the deposition, also known as the removal from the cross. It's based on feelings, and look at how tenderly Mary and Christ's hand rest so closely together. It is a confirmation, too, for many of the supremacy of oil by this point. I didn't mention it when we talked about Van Eyck, but Jan van Eyck and his brother are often attributed as being the people who discovered oil. We see that beautiful, the way that the drape of the body and hers and his, they echo each other, and the clarity and the luminosity of that painting and this masterpiece that transmits oil, these feelings. It's a clear, confirmation of that supremacy. There it is. And you see Mary here and her beautiful blue gown. Look at that. Oh, and by the way, they're on the field of Golgotha where the skulls of Golgotha are. So you see bones and skulls there. That's supposed where the cross was. Everyone is rendered beautifully. Okay, this is the end of part 2. And we'll start here in France for part 3 of this lecture.